All right, well, I'm from Grand Valley State University Annis Water Resources Institute. And how many of you have been to our facility? Anybody? Yeah, okay, good. I'm talking to some groupies here. Well, the Annis Water Resources Institute is part of Grand Valley. We have been since 1986 with our inception. We've been out on the Shoreline since 2001. And our mission statement does speak to education, outreach, and ecological research. Our facilities, our main building called the Lake Michigan Center, is at the far end of our property, and we're right next door to Heritage Landing and across from the LST. Our field station was completed in 2013, the main building in 2001. We also have a boathouses, which is what you see when you're going along Shoreline. Well, within our facility, we have a multi-purpose room, and that's where a lot of the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership groups meet, and so on and so forth. I have a dedicated education classroom. And then finally, there's just a spotlight of the interior of the building. It's very, water related, lots of original artwork. Within our facilities, we do have working science laboratories. And so we've got a variety of different labs, and also the upper right-hand corner shows some of our storage area. And we are very much into ecological research. Our director, Dr. Steinman, when he came with us, or came to the Institute in 2001, said we have to do the research. It's extremely important to do the research. So here are some of our major research areas, and aquatic ecology is probably the one that percolates up to the top in regards to this workshop. We have a variety of different peer-reviewed publications. Dr. Steinman was also all about, let's get these peer-reviewed publications out in top science journals, plus a variety of technical reports. And this first one, a socio-economic analysis of habitat restoration in Muskegon's area of concern. That has really been quoted quite a bit because it shows the value of restoration of Muskegon Lake. And here's some of our students that work. We do have a graduate program, master's program that we share with the biology department back on campus. We have summer interns, and when we are talking to the students that come to my classroom, we show them our year in review publication, which is out there on our display table. And I ask them, where are the scientists in lab coats? Can you find any? And the past few years, there's been maybe one picture of a scientist in a lab coat. This year, there's none. So that's gonna be kind of interesting to share with them that as scientists, we don't have to run around in lab coats. Now, the bulk of my presentations is going to focus on three main things. One is, what have we done with our shoreline? What did we start out with, and where are we now? And the second, I'm going to talk a little bit about our education outreach program on the W.G. Jackson research and education vessel. And then thirdly, I'm just going to touch on Great Lakes literacy principles. So our location is much different, I'm sure, from any of your locations, because technically our little strip of land shouldn't exist. The reason I say that is here's a late 1800 picture of Muskegon. And you see all these little kind of things going out in the lake. Basically what these were lumber mills. And so the red shape there outlines our little part of Muskegon Lake. So that's why I say, we in a way, we shouldn't even exist. But because of early development of Muskegon and all those little spits of land and so on and so forth, we are there. So I like to tell the students that, basically we're sitting in Muskegon Lake. So This spot that we are in is kind of unique because as far as I can ascertain from the old maps, this was the site of one of Hackley's lumber mills. And of course, Muskegonites are all familiar with Hackley and his lumber operations. And so some of the restoration, that Kathy and the whole group has been doing has involved kind of getting some of those logs out of the lake that were from the lumber times. There's also a lot of sawdust and such. Well, lumber mills were not just the only thing going on. These are some pictures that Dr. Bill Jackson took in the late 60s. They're affectionately known as Bill's Dirty Pictures, and they've got a lot of play. But basically, if you wanted to increase your lakeshore property, particularly in the industrial districts, you would hire a dump truck and you would just throw, stuff into the lake. And the lake was basically a dumping ground. And you'll notice in the back of this picture, it says West Michigan, it's actually Mardock there. I think, as far as I can figure, this is our site. Lovely, right? I mean, if you wanted to write a whole book about what you want to not do along the shoreline, you have it right there. When we acquired the property, all of that had been largely cleared out, and we did have some kind of odd things. The structure going up in the background, that's the front of our building, Lake Michigan Center, but you can see kind of along the shoreline, sort of what we were dealing with. And one of the first things that happened was to bring a whole bunch of sand in there. And so we found that maybe we could cover everything up and it would not look quite so nasty. And in the front, that's part of the existing building that was on the property. Well, here's a look from the lake of what we were dealing with. And you can see kind of broken up asphalt that was kind of holding the property up at this point. And the building is just being constructed. No, it's not abandoned. It might look so, but the windows weren't in yet. And the other thing to kind of notice with this is you can see that kind of to the right of the dredge, there's kind of a slope of concrete that goes like straight down into the water. So I mean, we had some very, very interesting things going on with this property. Well, we knew what we had to do. We had to do a lot better than what the property was when we obtained it. But we had some real issues. One is where the dredge is. We had to put in a fairly substantial seawall because where the dredge is where we launched the W.G. Jackson from. And that depth at one point was 13 feet. I know it's a lot more than that now. So that had to be put in. As a matter of fact, we had to get some emergency kind of okay from the Corps of Engineers because on the other side of our property, our little access road was starting to slump and you could see the property beginning to fall in. We are right next door on the other side to Lafarge, and there's huge freighters that come in and out our little channel. So, my apologies for seawalls and rocks and all that, but it was a total necessity just to keep our property intact. I took these pictures last week just to show you kind of what the high water levels have done. The upper left-hand corner, I have circled some sand. And what's happened is our rocks have started to slump down into the water. And so we're getting a little bare sand, and sometimes there's water that will come into there. And then the lower right-hand corner, this is part of our seawall. And last fall, There was, beach grass and all that, and sand, and somehow, I guess maybe around the top edge of that, I'm not really sure how it happened, but we have a hole that's maybe, I don't know, 3 feet deep. So, again, it's a bit of a challenge. So we've tried to do what we can do. For instance, there are places where we have gravel. They were putting in a greenhouse there, so they were trying to limit the impervious surface. But our biggest challenge early on was the fact that the parking lot that you see in the upper left originally was gravel. And gravel, that's permeable, yeah, great. Well, then the powers that be decided it should be concrete. And it's gorgeous concrete, I'll tell you that. Unfortunately, you can see that causes some drainage problems. So what we did was, first of all, you can see the little rocks in there, and we're not that far away from the shoreline. And then those rocks led into a little depression that we created a rain garden. And so here was getting the rain garden kind of all ready and all set up, and we got the student labor to come and help plant, and a lot of our staff as well. And here are our rain garden plants, because I know you all are kind of interested in plants and such. So we did kind of a combination. We had 2 kinds of grasses, and then we had the bee balm, which have already been mentioned, New England aster, that was already mentioned, and then black-eyed Susan, very showy. And the pictures on the lower left are just a couple of pictures of the rain garden, which I would think was probably about a year later, because it took a while for everything to get established. Now, one of the things that is nice about our property is we can actually use it to help educate people about what to do along your shoreline. And I did encounter somebody from the University of Wisconsin who did this Earth Partnership for Schools. And she and I talked, and she said, I'm very interested in doing a workshop in West Michigan.